All right, Jack Easterby spoke for the first time since being canned, and it was, I don't even know how to describe it. I'll let you be the judge of that. It was on something called the Sumer Sports Podcast. He was with former Atlanta GM Thomas Dimitroff and another guy who was really smart, Mr. Sumer. And I got to tell you, there are a lot of emotions that are created when Easterby spoke, some with the present, some with the past, and some with the future. When I heard him speak, first thing from for immediate, think positive first was in the present, thank God this guy's no longer here. Thank God this guy's no longer here because this guy's a goofball. I mean, he is silly when he speaks. When you go back to the past, though, you think, man, how did this ever happen? How did this guy run an NFL franchise? How did anyone fall for this? And that's the past. And in the future, I wonder, because you do hear him and there are some similarities with Nick Caserio, you ask yourself, well, is Jack Easterby really gone? Or do him and Nick Caserio think alike? I'll let you decide. I did put the link in the description, the Sumer podcast, the Sumer Sports Podcast. But let's just hear from Jack Easterby. And this thing actually starts pretty funny. There's always confusion about what exactly his title was and what the hell he did. This was the start of the podcast when he was introduced. And we weren't the only ones who might have been confused.
I'm joined not only by Thomas Dimitroff, the CEO of Sumer Sports, the former general manager of the Atlanta Falcons, but also Jack Easterby, who is vice president of player. Jack, give us your former title at Houston, because you had many of them.
I was the executive vice president of football operations. Thanks for having me, brother.
He was the executive vice president of BS. And what Jack Easterby does is he describes things very, very vague, but he tries to go in depth on them to where there's not one description of his title. So he can take over GM tasks, but if there are bad moves made, he can then say that he's serving and he can fire the equipment manager or whatever. So there's just all kinds of rambling. He was asked, and these are the questions that he was asked. You'll hear he doesn't really answer the question. This was Jack Easterby being asked about being fired in season, because they were talking about John Robinson at Tennessee, and this is what Easterby had to say.
Yeah, I think that one of the coolest things about these companies, right, these businesses now in football is the massive amount of resources that have been deployed to try to get this right at each institution, both in American sports and in world sports.
Guy.
I think you're seeing that their 12-month evaluation.
When has there not been a 12-month evaluation? He's acting like this is revolutionary. You'll hear this throughout
now, right? They're 12-month evaluations that everyone is making. That's how corporate America works. That's how all really corporate sports work, is 12-month evaluations, both in the projection situations where you're projecting trend and seeing where you're headed, but also in the cyclical analysis where you're evaluating different things at different times throughout 12 months. So I don't think it should surprise us.
This guy ran an organization.
Because everybody's doing their evaluations as they do them. And it may seem that the seasonal evaluation seems more common because there's obviously this group of people that are going under the submarine and spending this 5 months together. But quite frankly, with the amazing amount of resources that is going into sports now, it shouldn't surprise us that there's 12-month evaluations going on in every building.
Okay. What does that got to do with being fired in season? 12-month evaluations, that's new. Tell me where you've heard the Silicon Valley type analogies. So the interesting thing about this podcast, and I've witnessed Easterby kind of just act like he had nothing to do with the O'Brien era, although that's when his role was as strong as ever. It's almost as if he acts like he got here when Nick Caserio got here. And he was asked, he being Jack Easterby, about basically process over results, which is something that we hear about, and not getting to see your vision play out. This is what Jack said.
I think it's very important, though, as you look at these jobs, specifically in the NFL, to understand that each club is in their different phase of their own evolution. right? So it's very hard to make an analysis across the NFL, because if you look at the matriculation or the maturation of each club, Houston's the newest franchise in professional sports.
Been around
right?
for 2 decades,
the
bro.
Tennessee Titans, they're one of the newer clubs, right?
No.
Jacksonville's a newer club.
No.
Right? So as they matriculate through systems and processes and different types of coaching trees, they get all types of different data from those decisions that they can inform future decisions with. You look at the New England Patriots, the Pittsburgh Steelers, some of these others who have grandfathered in amazing amounts of lessons where they've been able to inform their future decisions by their past decisions. And so I think it's very difficult to evaluate it by the workforce and say that, you want to see a vision through. It's really specific to each situation where that franchise is in their maturation, and understanding, does the need of the franchise match the skill set of those involved? And I think that's probably a better question than does the person get to see their vision through? Because it's really not our vision. It's as much as we want it to be, it's what's right for that franchise, what's right for that organization to take the next step in their evolution.
So it sounds like he's saying that the Texans are new, so that was a little bit more difficult or something. Man, they've been around for 2 decades. You helped tear down the squad, and now we're doing this and by the way, the Titans aren't new. Like they were the Oilers all the way through. There's a clear pipeline from love you Blue Oilers to Titans. Like they didn't take a year off. Like their players, there's a smooth process there. So that's not even a it's almost hard to follow. Kobe Tree says he sounds like Nick. And that's where this goes from being amusing and like a sigh of relief to troubling. And that's where you hope that maybe he's done. Maybe Nick isn't the same thing, but I don't know. This is more from Jack Easterby on the Sumer Sports Podcast, talking about tiers.
The tiering out of the different franchises in relationship to where they currently are, and the understanding that if you're looking to get to level 1, or potentially looking to look at grade A or grade B, and you're trying to move up as an organization, let's just say in European soccer, you understand the next improvement for you is to get to this place, and you kind of understand that. Again, I think it's a 12-month evaluation. You want to have a player, obviously, that can be decently functional, in year 1, because you understand that you're limited in your ability to get players with the assets you have. All the players that you're drafting in round 1 or 2 are going to be available in free agent one day. They're going to be available in trades one day. You're still grading them. You're understanding them. And Nick did a great job making sure that everybody in the building locked in on those players in case they were ever available in a different capacity. And so, but from a specific transaction standpoint, people are focusing on 12-month transactions, right?
Yeah. I mean, what exactly did you say there? What exactly did he say there? Here is, and this is, we're getting comments. Shout out to everyone. Subscribe at Landry Locker on Twitter, at Landry Locker on Instagram. I actually got to get on a plane in less than 2 hours. I'm going to Philadelphia. We'll be broadcasting live from Army Navy tomorrow. So it's going to be a fun little time. Just had to get the video in. Ryan Justice says this goes one of 2 ways for me. Easterby, who doesn't know what he's doing, is just parroting and mimicking Caserio, who knows what he's doing, or they're both full of BS. I agree. They did spend a lot of time together, so maybe they'll sound the same, but hopefully Caserio isn't exactly him. And this is David right here. If he was aligned with Caserio in any way, that bleep scares me. I 100% agree with that. This was interesting. Jack brought up Garrett Wallow. And the funniest thing about this is I can't imagine how many people watching this podcast even knew who the hell Garrett Wallow was. And I like Garrett. I like Garrett. I've talked to Garrett. I think he's cool. Had some fun with him about TCU. I think he's a solid player. I think he maximizes everything that God gave him. And I like Garrett Wallow. But Jack Easterby just mentions this as if this is like some example of a revolutionary draft pick, drafting a safety / linebacker who plays special teams. And I thought this was weird too. Nick Caserio, say what you want about him, and I can say how much I like Garrett Wallow. drafting Garrett Wallow wasn't quite revolutionary, and it's not something that you should be talking about as far as something that's like transcending sports. Here's more from Jack.
When you have a pick is a fixed asset, right? And then
no, it's not. Like, and that's the other thing. He throws out this term fixed asset, and then he says that players aren't fixed assets. Picks can be magnified. You can trade back. You can trade up. You can trade a pick for players. So it's not a fixed asset. He can't even follow his own line of thinking on this. It's like a Saturday Night Live skit.
And when it becomes a player, it's no longer a fixed asset, right?
What does that mean?
It is actually an asset that can produce more than the value of the pick. And so when I look at a situation, just coming to mind here on players I know well, Garrett Wallow, okay. Nick picks Garrett Wallow in the shortened draft that you mentioned with limited assets. Well, okay, if he can play special teams, if he has multiple roles, if he's high character, if he's going to be available to the team, he's now taken a fixed asset, right, and made it into an unfixed asset because we don't know where it's going to go. Is it going to be 3 years? Is it going to be 7 years? Is it going to be a Hall of Famer? You never know. But I think what you're trying to describe, Eric, which is obviously –
So is it a fixed asset or not?
To understand this is that you're really in the
it's a fixed asset, but it can go anywhere.
Asset,
he can't even follow his own line of thinking.
Multiplication asset or an asset that can be multiplied and obviously set off dominoes all throughout, your ledger sheet. And so I think you feel a little bit of a pressure that it should look a certain way. It should look like picks. It should look like free agency. It should look like, in the Rams case, hitting on players better. But I don't think you should ever pigeonhole yourself into that one myopic view because
myopic,
where each franchise is so different. And the understanding of the ability to take whatever fixed asset I have, cap space, or potentially a player.
He's talking about cap space? He's the worst that I've ever seen at cap space. He got rid of the salary cap guy, Chris Olsen. This guy's talking about cap space like he's some sort of expert. And he's calling it a fixed asset. You can manipulate cap space too. Like, he makes up these words, he can't even follow it. How did anyone ever fall for this? He's smart for have never spoken, because if he'd have spoken, he'd have gotten run out of town a lot sooner. And I think this is why Nick needs to speak too, because I think Nick needs to be transparent. And I think transparency is important to this city. But I mean, if this guy had spoken, he would have gotten run. Who fell for this, man?
A pick and try to cash it in for a player, cash it in for a group of players, you then want that fixed asset to become an unbelievably unfixed asset that is massive. I think you just got to really stay locked in on the idea that what the fixed assets are, and then you're going to transition them into other things, and they can multiply really quickly. And that's the goal of anything.
Okay. Facebook user, why didn't he explain how he and O'Brien didn't multiply assets when trading Hopkins? Instead of multiplying assets by flipping Hopkins, he used the vision to get less in return. Exactly. And he's acting like that never happened. He was a massive part of it. But he uses things like fixed asset. And the funniest thing is he talks about how when you're talking about job titles, it shouldn't be fixed. Like, a job title shouldn't be fixed. He also said, and again, the link is in the description here. He also said that he didn't believe in time of terms, like how long a term should be. But then he talked about a month to month, like a 12-month evaluation. Here's the final piece from Jack Easterby. This is a nail in the coffin. You can watch this if you want. I'm highlighting, I'm shortening this up for you so you don't have to watch the whole thing, because Dimitrov's just as weird. Yeah, we'll skip that. We don't even need to hear anything else on it. But yeah, that was Jack Easterby. Thank God he's not here. Hopefully that vision is gone. But as a lot of people have brought up, including my co-host, when he does speak, it does sometimes sound like Nick. And that is very, 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 very scary. Other Texans nugs before I get on this plane. Davis Mills, he's back at quarterback. He spoke about his time away. Davis, he sounds like Davis, says he's going to take this as a learning experience. Might be without Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks, who are both hobbled up as well. So if you're desperate in fantasy, maybe Chris Moore is a guy that you may want to want to pick up. Also, something funny that happened today, and I'm not trying to get in this BS arguing that some people are doing. I don't understand like why we're arguing about this, but the Bill O'Brien was trending today, and every time I see Bill O'Brien trend, I wonder, did someone hire him? What happened? Bill O'Brien was trending because of the government transaction today. The Brittany Griner, I guess people were saying it was a bad trade. Or something like that. So anytime a bad trade happens in the NFL, NBA, whatever, Bill O'Brien trends. Bill O'Brien not immune to trending when it comes to government transactions either. So I found that pretty funny. Found the Easterby stuff amusing, depressing, troubling at the same time. We talked about it on In the Loop on Sports Radio 610, highlighted it even a little more. So fire up the Odyssey app and check that out. And I'll be live in Philadelphia tomorrow for Army Navy. We're going to have some pretty good guests, some NFL guys on to talk about this. I think we'll probably have Ross Tucker, Tiki Barber, a couple other dudes. So it'll be a fun time tomorrow. The show continues. Appreciate all the support throughout the season. Appreciate the support on the channel. Keep the subscriptions coming, trying to get to 1,000. Jack Easterby no longer here. How the hell did he ever get here in the first place? And my God, hopefully Nick Caserio is not that aligned with that guy, because I will say there are some crutches there that Nick uses the same, and it's crazy. So have a good one. No matter how bad things get, just always remember we are in this together. I'm going to Philly. I'll talk to y'all mañana at Landry Locker on Twitter, at Landry Locker on Instagram. Love y'all. Have a good one.